I want to invite you to come with me today and enjoy a journey into a chaplain's life.
Hi, my name is Ryan Wilson. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist pastor here in the Washington Conference with the privilege of serving in the Chehalis and Winlock churches in the southern end of the conference. I also have the privilege of serving as a chaplain here in Lewis County. I serve the police and fire departments. The person who inspired me to get into this was Jay Kuhn, associate pastor at the Auburn Adventist Academy Church.
When I first started chaplaincy, I serviced both police and fire pretty intensely. But I noticed very quickly that the fire department had guys who kind of went shopping together and ate together and rode in the trucks together, but the police were in the car by themselves. And not only that, the fire department welcomed me in just right away, but the police department, they weren't too sure about having a chaplain in their midst. And so I felt like it was really God's call to focus more with the police, but I found that the fire department is the one that's first on scene when a loss has happened.
We see a lot of death and tragedy in our jobs and our careers, and we utilize the chaplaincy program a lot to deal with our own grief and our own sadness, as well as care for the families after we leave, so we can get back in service, get ready for our next call. And they're much better prepared and trained for death and loss than we are, and so it's an invaluable resource for us to be able to have them come and take over for us, so that the family's better cared for, and we're able to get back into service.
Here at the police department, when they were developing the rooms and what they wanted in this department, they asked if I wanted a room, and so this is all they could give me, but it's a great place for me to be able to pull an officer in and be able to talk to them about situations in their life and just have prayer with them. I have had some pretty serious conversations in here, but they've always ended in a manner where there's a restorative relationship and good understanding, and it's a blessing to come along and work with these guys and gals. This is our wall of canines that have served Auburn through the years and the various amount of paraphernalia and drugs that they have brought in. One of our drug dogs, Ronan, died in June of 2008, and I actually did Ronan's funeral there at Auburn Academy's church. The officer asked if we could do a funeral, and I said absolutely. A lot of officers showed up, and you know, an officer works with and lives with their dog, and so it's just an awesome way to be able to honor both the officer and the dog that serves our community. This is our patrol sergeant's office right here, and then over here is our break room where lunch and goodies are served, as well as a nice TV that was taken from a drug bust. So this is our meter board for basically which car and which officer has which car. Today we're going to be out with David Lind. This is the office for our traffic officer, and he specifically goes to the accidents here in town. Great guy, and he likes to record various accidents that he has been to, and these are just a few of them. In fact, this officer here, I actually did his wife's funeral. I went the day his wife died. It was totally unexpected. I went out to his house that day and just wept with him.
When I became a pastor, I wanted to get into my community, not just through public evangelism or things like that, but I wanted to be a part of my community so that people knew me and knew who I was and what I stood for. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to become a chaplain.
This here is all the paperwork that they fill out for various different incidences. So they have to make sure that they keep their bags full with each one of these so they don't have to run back here because every call could be different.
I was sitting at home one evening, Friday evening in fact, and my wife and I had just finished dinner, and my chaplain pager went off, and they said it was a suicide call. And the address I knew, it was close to my house, and so I quickly got ready and went over to the address. And when I got there, I discovered that a mom had just lost her son who had hung himself in the garage. And I went inside and found her just weeping and weeping on the couch. And I very quietly introduced myself. I don't know if she even heard me. I think I had to introduce myself 2 or 3 more times throughout the course of the evening. She just constantly, "Who are you again?" And so I would tell her. But I just sat with her there. There was no words that I could say to comfort her. I just sat there, gently, rubbed her shoulders and held her hand and, let her cry on my shoulder. And it was the ministry of presence. There was nothing else I could do. If I had tried to have words of wisdom, it wouldn't have worked. She would have probably gotten very angry at me. All I could do was just sit there. Just sit there and hold her hand. If she had questions, I could answer them, but usually the answer brought more tears. And so that's what I did. I just continued to sit there with her. And it was my privilege the next week to conduct the funeral service for her son. And she did finally learn my name and figure out who I was and was appreciative of why I'd been there. But that's really what we chaplains do. We provide the ministry of presence. We don't come with a denominational evangelistic strategy. We don't come with, a Bible to preach at people. We just come and try to be the hands and feet of Jesus, provide the ministry of presence, love people like Jesus would when they're going through a difficult time.
Hey, why don't you come along and let's do a ride along with Officer David Lind, right out here. Come along. Well, this is the parking lot of our police department, and a number of years ago they gave me a key to the cars here so that when I'm out riding I can get in a car if it gets cold, or if things go south I have an opportunity to get away. One of the things that I like to do when I first get in the car with an officer is I like to know what their call sign is. Today he's 1 Adam 4, so that if anything happens I can get on the radio and identify myself as 1 Adam 4 and let them know where we are if that would need to happen. So understanding where an officer, where their beat is for the day is really important to me when I first get in the car. When I was a kid there in Ketchikan, Alaska, my mom had a scanner, and so we had listened to the police scanner from time to time, and so when I told her I was going to go into police and fire chaplaincy, she goes, "Oh my, that's just down your road, Jay."
It's like just the next progression.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, the neat thing about this, and this, I'm not out here to be a police officer. I'm out here to support you guys any way I can, and just to be an encouragement in a very negative environment.
It can be a very, very negative environment, but it's kind of nice just to know, even though we don't see you every day, it's nice to know that we have you just a phone call away.
Jay Kuhn is the type of chaplain that when the department needs him, we'll find him even if he's on vacation out of state and track him down, and he's very willing to come back and assist us. He's a very important part of our family.
So this is the place where the officers do training before they go out on their shift, and they go over activities that have happened that day, as well as they deal with any training that is needing to be happening for that shift.
One thing chaplaincy has done for me is to get me out of the normal life that I've always lived and out into my community. And as I've been out with the police and the fire departments, I've realized that things are rarely what they appear to be. When you get outside the walls of church and you get into people's homes who may have never heard the name of Jesus, there's a whole different side to life and a whole different set of circumstances that people go through in their life. Chaplaincy has taught me that I can't judge people when they walk in the door. I know that sounds cliche. There's a whole different side to life that I can't comprehend. That's not my experience. But Satan's been at work in these people's lives. And now Jesus has given us an opportunity to be involved in their lives. And we need to love them and support them rather than judge them by how they smell or what they look like.
Let me tell you something. Many people believe that there is no way a soldier can convert to Christ. But back in 1990, when the war started, I was only an E4. I was 20 years old. And when I got invited to accept Christ in the middle of the war, I said no. I told Christ, I don't need you right now. I was in Germany. I didn't seek you, so why seek you now? and I didn't do it. And you know what? Now that I look back, I regret it. But when I went to Texas, I accepted Christ, and it made a lot of difference. So soldiers do need Christ, because Christ can make a difference in anybody's life. That is one of the reasons why I am a Seventh-day Adventist chaplain.
Military chaplaincy is very diverse, depending on where you are or what you're doing. I came in the military before I was a Seventh-day Adventist, and while I was in the military, I discovered the Seventh-day Adventist message. I was stationed in Hawaii at the time, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church there did a Revelation seminar. And in that seminar, they were specifically trying to go after the military community that the church was around. So they had a ministry to the military community, and in that military community then, I learned the truths of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, prayed about it, and then I ventured forward following the power of the Holy Spirit in my life, and have never looked back since. My wife and I, Stephanie, my wife and I, had become prayer warriors. As a result, we both became Seventh-day Adventists based on prayer, and the prayer was suggested by my unit chaplain, who was not a Seventh-day Adventist. And he said, I suggest that you pray about what church that you want to belong to. And we prayed, and 9 months later, after we got married, we were in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and have never looked back. And at that point in time, I felt called to the ministry. And I couldn't really reconcile how that was going to work. But I felt like I needed to leave the military in order to be in the ministry. And I went on a 10-year quest then for the ministry calling, when my calling was always in the military. And I discovered that being a military chaplain was the calling that God had for me. And through that calling then, I was able then to minister not only to the variety of denominations and beliefs that we have in the military, but also to specifically our Seventh-day Adventist military members, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and the Army, not just in the Army. Although I'm an Army chaplain, when we deploy, when we go places and do things, we are integrated with all the other services. My dream for the Seventh-day Adventist Church is that they will also embrace the military members that are in their community, in their church, that may be either reservists or guardists or National Guardsmen or active duty members, and embrace them and say, I want to understand what you're going through and what the struggles that are unique to being a military member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Most of the time we are seeing soldiers, talking to soldiers, see how they're doing, see how their families are doing. We provide religious support in different areas. If they're in the range, we are at the range. If they're in the foxhole, we are in the foxhole. If they're in the rain, we are in the rain with them. If they are marching, we are marching along with them. If it's at PT, we are at PT with them. So anywhere the soldiers are, that's where we are at. Here I am to make a difference and to make sure that the soldiers know that there's a chaplain that they can talk to, regardless of the situation. So I know that the soldiers need Christ and they need to talk to someone, and I believe I can be that one.
We have unit ministry, we call it, where you are actually embedded with the soldier. And you do everything the soldier does, with the exception of military chaplains do not carry a weapon. And we don't do anything that has to do with fighting. We're non-combatants. But we do everything else with them, and I will go when they're shooting on the range, for instance, or they're doing an exercise in the field. I'll be with them, and we call it a ministry of presence. I prefer to use the word ministry of relationships, because it's all about building relationships in today's Army and in today's ministry. To be relevant to the soldier, they have to understand that you care about them. We have complete confidentiality, and that's respected by constitutional rights of the soldiers. And so they can come to us and they can divulge to us information that is important to their spiritual walk. They may not be able to do even to their closest friends, because it may jeopardize their job or it may jeopardize their relationship with another member of the unit. I think it's done well to have Seventh-day Adventist chaplains there to be able to stand by them and say, we understand because we live that life too. We understand because we're wearing the same uniform you are.
Hello, I am Chaplain Raul Maria. I am from the Dominican Republic. Came here to United States of America in 1992. I am serving at Joint Base Louis McCord. I'm a chaplain in the U.S. Army. I am a chaplain because 9/11. I used to work in building number 7, the last building that collapsed as collapsed at the 9/11 event. And after that, I was asked to serve at the Red Cross building as a chaplain, volunteer chaplain. At that point, when I was helping and serving and learning and giving all of me to the community, then at that point, I make the decision that I want to join the Army because of my connection with this event. Because I prefer to give my life for a country that has given me so much and the children that expect of me the best for them, for the community, for God, and for my church. That is why I'm serving as a chaplain. I just decided at that point when I come back to the seminary, I was 2 years away from my graduation, and I make the decision that I want to join the Army as a chaplain. And here I am, almost 8 years later, serving as it is the first day of my duty. I love it, and I have passion for what I do. And I encourage anybody that want to help, that want to serve, to join the chaplaincy ministry, because this is the best ministry that a person, a pastor, can do.
Chaplaincy is a calling. It's just like being a pastor. It's a different calling that Christ makes to any pastor that wants to talk not only to a specific people in a specific church, but you are talking to different people from any denomination, and you can make a difference in any of their lives. So I'm appealing to those pastors that are looking toward to be a chaplain in the Army. How is it like? Hey, it's just like being in a church, except you don't have a church.
There are about 42 chaplains throughout, Seventh-day Adventist chaplains throughout the whole Army. And it's been very good because 5 of them are stationed right here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And so we've been able to spend a lot of time together. As well, there's also another Air Force chaplain that's stationed here at Joint Base Lewis McChord, which makes 6 total. And then there's a Navy chaplain that's stationed just up the road off near Seattle at Whidbey Island, who is also a Seventh-day Adventist chaplain. So within the area, we have a total of 7 Seventh-day Adventist chaplains out of the 62 to 65 or so that are actually on active duty in the military. Army and military chaplains are a resource for the local conference as well as the local church, and there's no charge. So that makes it even better. We're paid by the military to do what we do. However, we are active in local churches. Depending on which conference we go to and the church that we find meets our spiritual needs, we will attend. And my family and I, we're attenders of the Winlock Seventh-day Adventist Church in Winlock, Washington. It's a very small church. We like the country church environment, and it's a very small church where the people are very genuine, and we spend a lot of time down there, doing ministry as well as being ministered to. And as well, here in the conference, we meet with the conference secretaries, presidents, vice presidents when we come into the area, and they utilize us to fill in, to preach, maybe even at camp meeting and et cetera, if we have the availability. Of course, we don't work for the church, so we have to go where our boss tells us. But at the same time, if we're available, we'll fill in for pastors who are on vacation at churches by preaching, and we will also help work in the churches themselves. I'm an elder in the church that I attend, and then my children are involved in the ministry there at the church as well. And so we can bring that also to different churches as we travel around the world. And it's been a great experience. My last experience in Germany, because there are not a lot of English-speaking churches in Germany, I actually pastored 2 English-speaking churches in Germany, Adventist churches. Small congregations, but there was a need there in the military base environment to have Seventh-day Adventist services. So I actually did a Seventh-day Adventist service there in Germany. When I first came in the military, my children were not used to it. It's not like they were born while I was in the military. I came in after they were born. And I explained to them what I was doing. And the way I picture it is I put it in a box of, I'm a missionary. And we as a family are a missionary family. And we're missionaries from the Seventh-day Adventist Church to the military, but also to the world. We have lived in Kansas, we lived in South Carolina, we've lived in Germany, and we've lived now in Washington since we've been in the military. And so we've been able to go around the world and see, number one, how other Adventists live. And that's been a great experience, to go to a church where they speak a different language, but they're Adventists, and things that are in common and things that are different. And we've also been able to go to other foreign countries and visit. We did a Martin Luther tour while we were in Germany. We went to Pompeii, we went to Rome, we went to all those places, and we were able then to see those things that we probably wouldn't have had that opportunity if we hadn't been stationed there. But my children, they feel like that they're missionaries, and they feel like they're part of a missionary family. And I have 3 children, and 2 of them are now thinking about pursuing a career as missionaries. And I can't help but think that the influence of the countries we've been to and the people we've met has influenced them to be able to spread the gospel message outside of their own country. Currently, right now, what I do is I'm going through a program called Clinical Pastoral Education, which is not an Army program. It is a nationwide international program that the Army has decided that they want to send their chaplains to. So you can volunteer to go, and I raised my hand and I volunteered, and I said, yeah, I would like to do this. And it's a year-long training program that teaches us how to work in hospitals and in prisons. And so it certifies us as chaplains. I've been a chaplain already for about 6 years of my life, but this is a advanced schooling and education that goes with it. And with that then, daily I go into the hospitals here at Madigan Army Medical Center, which is here in Tacoma, Washington. I go there to this hospital, and I go in and I minister to the patients. I minister to the staff. And it's yet another opportunity for me to be who I am as a Seventh-day Adventist minister in a military environment. There's lots and lots of veterans, lots and lots of families, and lots of people who work there as staff and providers who really appreciate the ministry that we give them, and really can't understand why anybody would want have a hospital without a chaplain in it. You live the great controversy every day. There's always a tension that goes on between Christ and his angels and Satan and his, and you see it daily. And I've had many experiences where I've seen the God at work and I've seen the devil at work at the same time, and I've seen God conquer the devil in people's lives and in their healing and in their spiritual lives as well. And it's a wonderful thing to see. There's so much time that we spend dealing with people, and we have no idea what the downline effects are. And sometimes 4 or 5, 6 years later, somebody will contact me, a soldier, and say, you know that time we spent together? And to be honest with you, sometimes I don't even remember it. And they'll say, that time we spent together, well, that started me on a path. And today, now, I am following God rather than following the world or following the things that I was following at the time. I've seen soldiers that have gotten off alcohol addictions, drug addictions, etc., because of the power of Jesus Christ in their lives. And that is just very rewarding as a chaplain. It's something that daily, you go through times as a chaplain where you're like, am I really making a difference? Does it really, is there some struggle out there? Am I struggling myself? And as I go through those times in my life, I sit and I think, yeah, they are, but then I can remember how I've watched God work, not only in my life, but in other people's lives. And that's very rewarding as a chaplain, to be able to watch how God works in people's lives. Of course, pastors get that as well. That's not unique to the chaplaincy. But where it's unique to the chaplaincy is that you've seen God work in people's lives, and they may not be Seventh-day Adventists. They may not have ever understood Christianity in the first place. So you're starting with the milk phase of their Christian walk, and you watch them walk through until they're eating meat. And some of them are inspired to go on and go into the ministry themselves even. And that is just very rewarding. One of the things I get to do here as well, you asked about my daily walk, but besides the hospital, we get to visit the regional correctional facility they have here as well. It's a prison, it's a stockade, a brig, whatever the terminology you want to call it, but they call it a regional correction facility. And it's a medium security prison here, and they're all soldiers that are in there. And it is a great opportunity to go in and meet people at their needs for Jesus Christ. I was deployed to Baghdad in one of the most vicious, ferocious fighting that we were doing in the main city of Baghdad during the surge of 2007 and 2008. I was in an infantry battalion, which means that they're guys that are constantly in combat, combat role. And we had a soldier who was very dedicated to his faith. He was a Mormon, and he was very dedicated to his faith. And Friday night, he came to me, and he was excited. He had had his second child, and that second child had just been born at that day. And 18 hours later, that soldier was on a bed in the treatment facility we had after he'd been hit by a roadside improved explosive device, IED for short. And he was dying, and he wasn't conscious. But when the doctors finished with what they're doing, they called the chaplain. And this wasn't a time that I wanted to be called in. I knew him well. He was very dedicated. And he had just had a child 18 hours before that. And, I went to his bedside after the doctor said there's nothing else we can do. And I got up next to his head, and I told him who I was. He knew me. We knew each other well. And I said, I'm going to pray with you. And I believed he was able to hear me. And I prayed with him. And I asked God to comfort him and his family. Not even Army chaplains, a lot of Army chaplains get that opportunity. And I felt very humbled by that opportunity to be able to be there at that time in his life. They were able then, after I prayed with him, to find a heartbeat. So there was a miracle there. God, for some reason, kept him alive for a little bit longer. He lived about 12 hours more when they evacuated him out to the subsequent treatment facilities that they sent him to. I don't know why God had him hang on for 12 more hours. But I know that there was a lot of people in that room that were absolutely amazed by the fact that he came back to life and that he had a heartbeat after 20 minutes of not having it. And so I believe that as he went out, that he was a witness for Christ as well. And that, to me, is the quintessential chaplain story. Because he wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist. He didn't believe like I did. But God still used him, and I think in a way used me, in order to witness about him.